If you think about it, when you get pure alcohol and you clean the surface of your counter with pure alcohol, that kills all the bugs.
Right.
In the same way, when you drink alcohol, that is killing some of the bacteria in your gut.
Welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're listening, chances are you want to create happiness around you and thrive in your life. We're glad you're here and you've come to the right place. This podcast will inspire and motivate you to not merely survive your recovery journey. We'll give you the tools to build or strengthen your foundation to thrive and flourish in your life. In each episode, we will come together as a community to have authentic conversations around addiction, recovery, and what matters, growth and progress, not perfection, all while developing positive habits for you to utilize. To learn more, please visit positiverecovery.com/podcasts to sign up and to receive the daily positive interventions that we'll review, as well as gain access to exclusive Positive Recovery content available only to Positive Recovery MD listeners. All right, let's get started.
Hello, welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're new here, I'm your host, Dr. Jason Powers, and in each episode, we cover a variety of topics in the recovery space, including positive psychology, best practices for a successful recovery journey, power of gratitude, and holistic health, which we have today a very special guest speaker, a friend of mine who just recently gotten to know. He is brilliant and a true healer. He's a board-certified anesthesiologist that did a bunch of work with clinical trials and is very published. But recently I heard that he actually gets paid to go on a cruise ship and tell people how to live their best life. You know, he's a sleep expert, but very much up to date on all longevity topics. So I just thought I'd pick his brain and help you guys learn a thing or two. So, hey, thanks for joining us, Harold.
Thank you. It's really my pleasure to be with you today.
All right. What would be the top 3 mistakes you see human beings make for their health and well-being?
Well, I think number one, people don't understand is the importance of sleep. It sounds so simple to go to sleep, but most people in the Western world lack sleep. And in fact, the World Health Organization has deemed sleep deprivation to be a crisis. And we all think of sleep, you go to sleep, nothing much happens. But sleep is such an active process where we're healing, we're restoring the body, we're resetting the brain, getting rid of toxins, getting memory formed, new thoughts created. While we're asleep, so much happens. And when you cut yourself short of sleep, so many bad things happen downstream, including diabetes, weight gain, mood disturbances, even cancer, poor healing, Alzheimer's potentially, and a whole bunch of severe medical illnesses can arise from lack of sleep. So I always put sleep as number one.
Okay, before you go to 2 and 3, I want to unpack a couple of things because what you said was really interesting. For example, people don't really associate memory with sleep, but while we're asleep, we're converting stored memory or working memory to long-term memory. Like, how does that work?
So basically, when you're sleeping, we actually have 2 main kinds of sleep. We've got the REM sleep or the rapid eye movement sleep, and we have the non-REM sleep or rapid eye movement sleep. So those are the 2 kinds of sleep that we have. Now, in non-REM sleep, you basically are storing memory like a computer, just storing facts.
Right.
Today's date, the person's name. But during sleep or random eye movement sleep, that's when your body gets to comprehend more complex ideas and put thoughts and concepts together. So I'm sure you've heard the saying, and get back to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the reason is because overnight, your body is taking in multiple subconscious concepts, looking at them, and the next day you can get that concept formalized where you couldn't think about it without a good night's sleep. So those are the 2 kinds of memory. And if you lose either, you're going to lose a component of your learning in your brain. And that's why sleep is so important.
There was a study I learned about which actually started with mapping out a rat's brain. So that, they would hook up electrodes and figure out what part of the rat brain is activated during maze navigation. Mm-hmm. So they figured out where the rat sees things in 3D, where it takes a right, where it takes a left, how it processes that. And then it kept those sensors on while the rat slept. And the long and short of it is in a series of more like progressively difficult mazes to sort of navigate, rats' brains were figuring out how to get through the maze in areas of the maze they hadn't yet been to. So yeah, like we say we're going to sleep on it. And, I trust that my brain's going to figure out solutions if I don't know the answer right away. I know it comes to me when I wake up, or it comes to me when I'm working out or whatever. But it's probably like things are getting figured out that we don't even know about yet. If the rats can do it,
correct,
we're navigating areas unseen as well.
And even with memory, they increased the amount or delayed the school start time for many kids.
Oh, yeah.
And that extra hour of sleep that the kids got resulted in an increase in their SAT scores by about 200 points.
Wow.
Resulted in less truancy and bad behavior because they were less irritable because they were awake.
Right.
And what's interesting is life expectancy went up. And the reason for that is about a 70% decrease in car wrecks and accidents.
Whoa.
Because they weren't so sleepy. So that extra hour of sleep changes lives.
How does sleep differ throughout the decades of life, say? So I know that study, school-age kids shouldn't start the day at 7 or 8 a.m., right? But just in terms of, are there general trends that our listeners can follow?
Initially, when you actually in utero, you're going to have more REM sleep. And REM sleep is when the body is laying down brain and brain function.
Right.
Now, when you think about it, what affects REM sleep? One of them is alcohol.
Right.
When you have alcohol, you get sedated, but it's not real sleep. So you aren't in real sleep. Therefore, you're not in real REM and non-REM. So therefore, the fetus gets less REM and non-REM. Therefore, there's less memory being laid down. And that's one of the causes of fetal alcohol syndrome.
Right. Right.
Now, when that baby is born and the mother thinks, oh, great, I can have some alcohol now. That alcohol the mother drinks is going to the breast milk. And the same blood levels the mother has is in the breast milk. So therefore, again, that baby's brain is not going to develop as well because less non-REM sleep.
I've had friends who went to doctors that said a certain amount of alcohol is okay when you're pregnant. And doing what I do, I had long since accepted that none should be the amount. But it's amazing how many doctors are telling pregnant women that it's okay to have a couple.
Yeah. You see, alcohol is so socially acceptable. So I'm going off on a bit of a tangent now, but it's so acceptable that people are afraid almost to say don't have alcohol. But American Cancer Association has found, or people are saying, that it's a carcinogen, causes cancer.
Yeah.
The same way,
right.
The whole other talk is about the gut microbiome. If you think about it, when you get pure alcohol and you clean the surface of your counter with pure alcohol, that kills all the bugs.
Right.
In the same way, when you drink alcohol, that is killing some of the bacteria in your gut. And I read something recently, which I haven't verified, but sounds very interesting, is that the theory is a hangover is due to something called lipopolysaccharide, which is a breakdown product of the bacteria. And the level of lipopolysaccharide and endotoxin correlates with blood alcohol levels.
Oh.
So the more drinking, the more you've got of lipopolysaccharide in your blood causing this issue. And people thought it's dehydration. It may be partly that, but also largely could be from the lipopolysaccharides. So that's new work I've just come across recently. But that's interesting how alcohol affects that. Plus, obviously, it affects your sleep. It's not natural sleep with alcohol.
Right.
Initially you get very sleepy. It works on a different center. Alcohol will work on the same sleeping tablets, sedate you, but don't give you natural sleep. Plus, the sleep's very interrupted. That's why you feel so terrible after a heavy night's drinking.
Right. So we say you pass out and come to, you don't fall asleep and wake up.
Yeah, 100% correct. So alcohol is a problem in many respects.
Yeah. So I guess going down the list, number 2, number 3, could it be not taking care of your gut biome?
Well, it's all indirectly related. I think number 2 to me is limiting the amount of sugar and processed foods. And I was going to, for 1 second, people often ask me, what is processed foods or highly processed foods? So basically highly processed foods, you've got to differentiate, for example, what is unprocessed food? Well, an apple, an orange, some meat, that's unprocessed. Eggs, milk, to a degree, is unprocessed foods.
Right.
Processed foods would be cooking that meat or pickling some cucumbers, that's processed, or a can of something in the canned tuna, that's processed. Also not too bad for you.
Right.
When you're looking at highly processed foods, that's a totally different situation. In highly processed foods, you're taking pretty much unnatural compounds that you can never get in your pantry or get in the supermarket, and they are made in an industrial mechanism, put together in a way that makes it tasty, highly addictive, and pretty much usually high sodium, high sugar, high fat, and bad for your bowels. So they are natural substances, and the problem is they're delicious, and they're delicious, and they're highly addictive.
Right.
And there's so many studies showing how parts of the brain light up when people are shown these things who have been given these highly addictive foods.
Right. Absolutely. Same part of the brain lights up if you show somebody on, a heroin addict a needle.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So that to me causes raised insulin, and insulin is, in my mind, the bogeyman right now, the terrible hormone which incorrectly stimulated causes all the problems we have right now with the obesity health crisis. Correct.
Yeah, including Alzheimer's, right?
Correct. So Alzheimer's, particularly type 2 diabetes, especially the type 2 has an association with Alzheimer's because of the high sugar levels. And people are calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes because the condition called insulin resistance.
Exactly.
Which is known to make the cells less sensitive to insulin.
Right.
And I always compare insulin sensitivity to a person having a drink. If you have a drink once a year, you'll feel it. You'll feel the effects of that drink. If you have 15 drinks a day, you don't feel those drinks very much. In the same way, if your body is bombarded by sugar and insulin the whole time, those cells become numb to the effects of insulin. The same way, the brain's also become numb to the effects of insulin. The brain is highly dependent on glucose to function. And if you can't get the glucose into the cells, because the cells are now insulin resistant and numb to the effects of insulin, the brain cells are basically undernourished and you get dementia.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the problem with insulin. It's so widespread, every organ system can be affected by high insulin.
Right. And I just want to plug sourdough really quick, that it lowers your glycemic index when you eat it. So in terms of, foods, the bread that you buy in the store, most of it, like Wonder Bread and all that, is absolute poison. But get yourself some sourdough, eat it with the meal, keep your insulin secretion down.
Thank you for that plug.
Yeah, that was brought to you by our sponsor, the Sourdough Makers of America.
Okay, so that does the glucose and highly processed foods, number 2. And then the exercise is very important for many functions. Exercise, both in terms of cardiovascular fitness, one of the biggest correlates of longevity is something called VO2 max, basically how much oxygen your body can use and consume when you're exercising. And the higher that is, the better your longevity chances are. So that's what exercise, by doing exercises, you'll do that. Second of all, you'll build muscle mass. And muscle mass is crucially important. And it's been recognized today that we are losing muscle mass. One of the biggest, the new smoking is people with sedentary lifestyles. People don't move at all, and that causes muscle wasting. And you need your muscles for balance as you get older, for stability. Your muscles will take up glucose, If you don't have enough muscles, the glucose levels in the blood will rise, and it'll raise insulin levels. It can definitely help with hormonal status. So many beneficial effects come from muscle bulk being maintained.
Right, and just the exercising your skeletal muscles releases not just endorphins and dopamine, but other proteins that are helping longevity, helping cellular repair. So like doing the exercise, I know there's a lot of people don't get like the runner's high.
Right.
And some people would never run unless they're chased. But when you let them know, you've got to build muscle, it prevents bone loss, especially women with osteoporosis, but also in terms of,
correct,
it just will help you live longer and have the extra years healthy.
And also it has a positive effect on the microbiome as well.
How so?
Well, there's actually a bidirectional effect with the gut microbiome. When you're exercising, you're actually stimulating the growth of healthier bacteria. You're getting a better mixture of the advantageous bacteria, as well as those bacteria will secrete dopamine. And that's part of the high you get after exercising. So it's a two-way. It's a bidirectional positivity with the exercise and the microbiome.
So that's fascinating. So our gut bacteria release feel-good neurotransmitters also.
Most of serotonin is made in the gut. 90% of serotonin is made in the gut. And you may have heard of serotonin and mood. Small correlation there with that.
Yeah, small correlation.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm a doctor. Most of the listeners are not.
Yes.
And I just learned something pretty profound. 90% of the serotonin is made in the gut.
Poor. If you have a poor diet. So basically, tryptophan is an amino acid. And the tryptophan gets converted in the gut to serotonin and melatonin. Okay. And tryptophan is found in turkey. As you know, it makes you drowsy after the Thanksgiving meal. So it's in eggs, chia seeds, a whole bunch of different things have high concentration of tryptophan, which will then get converted to serotonin. Serotonin, it's for happiness, mood, sleep, body temperature, hunger. So many different important things are there important with that.
Right, but it's made peripherally. That's great.
Correct. So if your biome is damaged and you aren't producing the serotonin, then you may get depression.
Yeah. I saw a great South Park episode on it, which I highly recommend.
Well, fecal transplantation is basically taking the feces from an undiseased person and giving it to a diseased person.
And it helps them out.
Correct. The only FDA-approved indication for this is something called C. diff. So sodium difficile, which is a bad diarrhea you get after antibiotics. You take stool from a person without the disease, give it to a person with the disease, and that results in improvement in their symptoms. And there have also been many studies where you take fecal microbial transplantation from people without psychiatric disorders and give it to people with those disorders, and they get better. Now, there's a meta-analysis out there you can look at. It's looked at 21 different trials with different mood and behavioral issues, and it helped the symptoms. Now, what was consistent in that study or that meta-analysis was that the symptoms improved. What was variable was the duration of effect.
Right.
So it may be a placebo effect. It may not be. I don't know, but it's something to look at. Plus, people with depression, there is data showing that people with depression have got a different proportion of bugs in their microbiome.
Right.
And that can cause inflammation, and it's a whole lot of downstream effects from that. So, have you discussed the microbiome previously? Do people know what the microbiome is?
Not on this, but I do know for a while it's been in the forefront of talking about. I used to work on the the liver transplant board at Methodist, and they had these annual talks, and the gastroenterologist would really go into detail about the gut microbiome, and they would lose me. But now I know why it was in the forefront of a lot of the discussions. And I wish, if I could go back and listen better, I would have. That's amazing stuff. I'm going to eat less processed today.
So basically, it's just what it really is a whole host of bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa that live inside with us. And
Right.
there's about 100 trillion of these bugs living with us. And just to get a scale of how important it is, people think that a third of the proteins in our blood are from the microbiome. They aren't human.
A third.
A third.
Yeah.
So it's a huge component of our living and our existence. And if you look at it, you think about our genes. We have about 25,000 genes, and there's about 2 to 5 million genes in the microbiome that we have. So some people say we're more bacterial than we are human, because so much of our genetic material is bacterial.
No, it's so interesting. I'm speechless.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that doesn't happen too often. Let me ask you, before we wrap up, I was going to see, do you take any supplements and why? Like, what do you recommend in the world of, you've got to be on everything. It's easy to get lost. So what do you put in your body?
Okay. So I think 98% of what you can do, or maybe more, is not supplements. I think sleep, diet, exercise, and something we didn't even touch upon at all, which I think is probably the most important thing, which often gets left behind, is exactly social culture, immunity, community, being together, which is the most important thing overall for just feeling good and living a long life. So those are the important things. Do those 4, and that'll take you most of the way. Now, there are certain supplements that I do take. Some people think I take too many, but I take a number of supplements. The basic one is vitamin D. People are vitamin D deficient. In fact, I think there's about 10,000 processes in the body where the vitamin D plays a role. So really important, vitamin D. Now, I take my vitamin D with something called K2, vitamin K2, which helps to get the calcium absorbed and goes to the bone, not the soft tissues and the blood vessels. So I take that every day. I suggest you test your blood levels before you start taking anything. Obviously, always speak to your doctor.
Right.
Then I take magnesium. It helps with blood pressure, sleep, just generally relaxing the body. I take occasionally, every morning I take NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide, which is supposed to help build up the energy supplier for the mitochondria and for sirtuins. I take creatine every day, which is a source to help increase muscle mass, and they say also improves cognition and brain function. I take resveratrol, which also helps apparently with longevity, as well as some chondroitin-like substances to help with some cartilaginous defects, which is seemingly helping me as well. I take some other drugs as well, incidentally as well, but I think those are the big ones. And then what's getting more popular and more discussion these days is metformin, which is a prescription drug for diabetes, which may have a whole other host of goods, which is a whole discussion on its own. And then another drug people can take for longevity, which is also experimental right now for longevity, is something called rapamycin. And that's another discussion as well. So,
okay. All right. Well, man, thanks, Harold. You gave us a lot of good nuggets. Thank you very much. All right. Well, I'll see you soon. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Positive Recovery MD. Don't forget to visit positiverecovery.com/podcast to sign up to get your daily positive interventions sent straight to your inbox. Be sure to subscribe to Positive Recovery MD on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts to receive an automatic download when a new episode drops. And as always, if you or someone you know needs help, visit positiverecovery.com or call 877-4-SOBRIETY. That's 877-476-2743. Our why is simple. We care. We are here to help.